All right, guys, we're back. We're back once again. Dating relationship Q&A, and looking forward to roll with this. Let me just get this link set up for Twitter. All right. Yep, a little delay. As always, a bit of a delay, but we're good. We're rolling now. One second. All right. Cool. So we have a fun show tonight, and I have a lot of topics I'm going to go into over the next couple days. We've been delayed on videos. Last weekend I was away, and I intend to try to use as much as possible, try to clear out, because I'm trying to do 2 a week, and so I didn't do 2 last week. I'm going to try to catch up, so we'll see how we can get with this. But they're just going to be shorter. We're going to do some shorter videos. I think if we can keep them to 30 to 45 minutes every time, and maybe 20 to 45 minutes, I think we're in a good position with that, and we can maybe do more of them, keep them a little bit more focused. So the wine today is only one wine, and we have Tanat from Uruguay. Now, Uruguay is interesting. So when we talk about wine, Uruguay is not normally considered a South American wine area. Normally you're thinking about Argentina and Chile, which makes sense, of the two biggest producers. And actually, after Argentina and Chile, you have Brazil. And don't sleep on Brazil. It's very hard to get Brazilian wine outside of the area. But if you go to Brazil, in the south of Brazil, there's some pretty cool stuff. And when I was there a few years back, I actually picked up enough for a tasting, and it's quite impressive, especially their sparkling wines. They have a high plateau in the southern portion, which allows it to get, in southern Brazil is more temperate, not the tropical stuff you think of when you think of Brazil. But Uruguay, while they do have some regions that are along the border with Brazil, where most of Brazil's wine area is on that plateau, one region in particular called Rivera is kind of burgeoning. It's a whole new experimental area. Most of Uruguay's wine is going to be on the southeastern coast of the country, and it has a lot of cool Antarctic winds that come up. So it's very different than Argentina and Chile, which are pretty much entirely on drier, more elevated mountain slopes. This is more of a coastal situation. Of course, everything in Chile is kind of coastal. Now, the interesting thing about Uruguay, along with Argentina in particular, is that Uruguay's main wine it produces is Tanat. And it actually has the old vine stuff that had a different name, like Jauriga or something like that. But Tanat is the main one. And you can see it right here. 100 años right here, Tanat. And Canelones is one of the major regions I was telling you about in the southeast. So Tanat, kind of like Carmenere, and kind of like, which is Chilean normally, and kind of like Malbec, which is normally Argentine. These are all French grapes. Tanat comes from the far southwest of France. It's actually a Basque wine, and it came from a lot of the Basque immigrants who came to Uruguay. So what's interesting is that Tanat, kind of like Malbec, Tanat, it's like tannin, right? It's a very, very thick skinned, usually takes a lot of years to kind of smooth out. But because it's warmer in Uruguay than France, it actually smooths out faster. So it's interesting. We'll try it out. So on the front, just a little bit of stink, but it's mostly just, yeah, it's a little stinky in a good way, right? In a good way. But let's see. Holy shit, really stinky. Really stinky palate. What we're talking about here is like really animal, really like it was like going into a barn. It was like tasting manure. And look, with wine, this isn't bad stuff. It's not a bad thing to have that kind of flavor. It's really interesting to have all sorts of like these vegetal hay, dirt, meaty kind of stuff come up. But also the fruit is very cooked, very, very cooked. It's almost like one of those fruit strip candy things you used to get as a kid. Um, very, very interesting. Very interesting. I would like to do maybe a broader Uruguay wine tasting at some point in the future, but I just wanted to do a single bottle, and I had this one on hand. So, cool. So let's go through some of these questions. So, question number one. Hey Pat, when does imprinting usually occur? As as in a ages, or does it vary between every woman? Is it usually their father or first love? Usually early, correct? What I want to know is if the imprint was abusive character or more broadly negative. They look for those same abusive traits in their mate. Okay, so imprinting is an interesting thing, and I think the fundamental question he's trying to understand is where does a woman kind of get her triggers from? Where does she get, um, you know, what is it that emotionally imprints onto her? How does that happen? I don't think that you can actually say that if there's any sort of universal answer to this. There's a lot of different things that might imprint. The way it works with trauma is this: trauma is something that kind of breaks through your emotional defense mechanism. So some people are more easily traumatized than others, and some people are more easily traumatized by some things than others. And of course, once that break happens, kind of like you know, a scab that hasn't fully healed, a similar thing could agitate it, aggravate it. Now, the general rule is, though, when it comes to imprinting, that you need to really bring it to awareness. And very often, the imprint needs to be the trigger, the trauma needs to be greater than the actual thing that occurred if you're going to break it. I mean, a lot of mind control programming is based on trauma based mind control. Okay. So, um, I would say that it is usually the father or the first love, right? And it usually is an early imprint because when something happens early, it has a bigger staying power just on your psyche. You're much, much more impressionable. You don't have as much experience. You don't have as much of an immune system, psychological, energetic immune system. You don't have it. So yeah, I would say it's often from early men in your life will imprint on how you will treat men later on. But I want to say that can also be epigenetic, can come from generational trauma, and a lot of things that you may engage with a woman on, or a woman may be triggered about. She could have an imprint that comes from a woman that affects you. It's not usually talked about because it's less direct, but if she has a negative dynamic with her mother, that imprint can affect you as well as a man. It's not just that you only have to carry the crap that she has with her father. So important to say that. But Mr. Branford, it's great to see you. Great to see you, my friends. All right. Next question. Hey, Pat, have you ever covered when a girl gives you the vibes of just wanting something casual slash sex, but at the same time gives you the vibes of wanting something more? I've been out with a girl 3 times in 2 weeks. I already spent the night at hers twice. As I didn't want to come across too serious looking for a relationship so soon, I suggested we could Netflix and chill for the next time. This is what we did the last time, and it was her idea. Anyway, she replied we could also do something during daytime outside, not just going to hers and having sex. This kind of behavior really confuses me. I dated one girl in the past who acted similar and didn't want anything serious at all. I guess it could be the same case. She, the current one, was quite into me, especially the first times, wanting to meet just 2 days after the date and going with her friends and out and stuff like that, or telling me it was a long time ago when she felt this good with someone after the first date, but she's been a bit more distant for the past week. FYI, I was right with her being more distant. Set a date Friday for Sunday, and she ended up flaking and saying we could meet another day this week. I guess I acted weak on our last date somehow and turned her off a bit. This sucks, but I'll wait for her to reach out to meet. So, just to give you an idea of what's going on here, I just want to talk about two scenarios that happened. Um, so, a girl is okay. The first is that a girl could um, just kind of go and hook up, and that's the expectation. It's just going to be a hookup. But then she really, not only the hookup's good, but she really enjoys being with you. She thought it was going to be casual. There's a little bit more energy there, and so she starts to fall a little bit more emotionally, right? And so, even though her initial objective may have just been having sex, she might start to catch some feelings, and then might try to change things by positioning, trying to do stuff that are more datey, right? Rather than just hookup. Like, okay. So that's a common thing that can happen. Now, what I will say is that the other situation, and which is much more applicable to the current dynamic you're describing, is that when a girl is just goes to have sex, and when she's kind of doing this out of a lot of like low self-esteem, even if she does start to catch some feelings for you, I've mentioned this before, but I think it's so important that guys understand it. If a woman does not, okay, if a woman does not have a healthy self-esteem, then she is not going to be easy to be in a relationship with. She will punish you in the process of trying to have something serious, because she believes if you want to be with her, you must be a loser, actually, because she sucks. She's just a fuck toy, and you are trying to actually spend more time with her. So, wow, you caught too many feelings. This is not a healthy person behavior, but it's very common with women today. It's a trauma response. So when you say here, she was quite into you the first times, wanting to meet just 2 days after the date, going out with her friends. She wants you to. Her pattern typically is chasing after a guy. Hooking up, then chasing after a guy, trying to lean into him, making him kind of. And then what you would do is say, "Oh yeah, well I can hang out next week, or you can do this," or you kind of put her off a bit. You don't see her that often. They don't make it. I mean, I'm not saying this stuff is great, because then maybe she creates some drama around that. But the point is, if you start to show interest in her, then she punishes you. Really crappy to date these kind of women. So just wants you to, and look, you may have come across a little strong too, and that obviously amplifies all this. But my sort of sense of this is that the extent of which that's happening is much less than her being messed up is happening, right? That's the main stuff to understand. Okay. So let's see here. And what's the energy like this evening in the U.S.? I would say there's a nice little relief given the verdict. I think everybody's feeling pretty happy about that, except for the. This is a dating show, so my dad's just hanging out over here.
Let's go, Brandon.
Given his perspective. All right. So let's try to get him out of there diplomatically, but he had to make his comment before we head out. All right. So next question. We'll do the CC show another time, probably maybe later this evening. So a girl I'm dating has family issues. Mother died when she was 15. Mother moved and left. She's been in the US for 5 years. Okay. She doesn't have a great job and has some self-esteem, emotional issues, but I'm weirdly attracted to her, and she is smart slash an old soul. Attracted to her physically too, something I cannot explain. I have also suffered from anxiety slash self-esteem, so maybe that's why I vibe with her. I don't know if this is a red flag though, and whether to stay away. I'm so conflicted. Well, let's look at it this way. Um, it sounds like there's a lot of red flags. It sounds like there's a lot of red flags with her. Um, what about you? Are there red flags with you too? Let me explain something to you guys when it comes to red flags, and something that when I work with clients that I deal with. Okay, you want to understand red flags, but people do not respond to if you say that this girl has a red flag, but he's attracted to her, he's gonna date her, right? She's interested. She's love bombing him. He wants her. You can tell her how this girl's gonna ruin your life, and he's still gonna date her. It's not effective to tell a guy don't date her. It's not effective to do that because it doesn't work. And what happens is that they just shut down their channel of communication with you, or they kind of do this half thing where they will partially do what you say and partially find themselves enmeshed with the girl. So then maybe they don't take actions that they want to take, and then they polarize against you because then they didn't take them, right? So this is another reason not to give advice to people who aren't ready, but it's an awareness that if you like a girl and she's messed up and you're going to go after her, well, go after her. Now, how do you break that pattern? You have to go in with eyes open. So when we talk about red flags, it's not, um, you're going to polarize against a girl like this at some point. It's going to happen. And if you're going to polarize against a girl like that, you have an issue too. So you have a red flag. Congratulations. A healthy girl is going to consider you a problem. So, okay. If you want to get a healthy girl in the future, you might want to go through this, go through that situation. So, but yeah, it is definitely a red flag. Now, I just would say, pay attention, and you may be projecting a fantasy onto her because of your own anxiety, self-esteem issues. She's got them too. There's a concept of orphans trapped in a storm. Two people who feel misunderstood or abandoned, who cling on to each other. It's not a very healthy relationship dynamic, but it's a common one. Just be aware of it. That's how you break it. That's how you get out. All right, let's see what else. We got two more, and this one in the chat. I'll answer this one. The Mr. Branford insurance question, if you have time at the end. Can you elaborate on the tweet relating to female intimacy issues stemming from the inability to separate sexuality from sluttiness? Well, it's a really good question. I am writing a piece on it. And guys, I'm so backlogged with writing. I have basically what has come to be a book. It's not the book. All right. I want to emphasize this. It's not the book. The book will come probably 2022 to 2023. I know it's a long time out, but I only intend to write one serious book. Okay. One serious book. I don't have an interest in being the guy who just produces book after book after book. It's just one book, one big book. I have my tackling texting, which is like a practical manual, very specific. And I have this kind of book I'm making, and I think I will publish it as a book. The 3 pillars of attraction, which is going in detail, but I still consider this like a lot of it's going to be if you're on the email list, you're going to get it. So I mean, I'm not trying to make money off of it. It's more of just so I got that. I got another big blog post on lust and love, and I got a big blog post on this. So, there will be more coming out on it, but I just want to make this one point on, you know, female intimacy issues stemming from inability to separate sexuality from sluttiness. Women are sex. Women are sex. And I know when I say this, I'm going to get tons of women who are pissed off. Tons and tons of women being pissed off. But one of the biggest things that women struggle with is that women were designed for sex. They were designed for sex. You can say the same thing that men were designed to be pack animals for violence, but women were designed for sex. Women don't want to believe that they were designed for sex because there's an identity aspect around that. And there's a lot of shame around their sexual nature. So, and men have had a major role in fucking women up with this. You know, this is the whole stuff with shaming women's sexuality and trying to make it so that if a woman was sexual, she was considered to be a whore, and having all these kind of religious sort of institutions that emphasized, you know, the virginity of a woman rather than her sexual expression. Now, with great power comes great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. So just like a man, you know, to quote Jordan Peterson, shouldn't be harmless, he should be capable of violence. Doesn't mean that he is violent. Doesn't mean he's indiscriminately violent. Doesn't mean he just trashes and stuff and hits people. It's the same thing with a woman when it comes to her sexual power. She has a lot of power sexually. Look, guys may not like to hear it, but compared to women, men, sex is not our domain. It's not our domain. It's not our domain of mastery compared to them. I mean, we can be good in bed, be good lovers, just like a woman can learn martial arts and defend herself and fight. But women were made for sex. So women struggle with that concept. Now, here's how it affects intimacy. When a woman struggles to accept the relationship between herself and sexuality, and again, in her defense, men have for a very long time in positions of authority pushed them into this Madonna whore paradigm where she's either really good and denies her sex, kind of like disarms herself, or she is basically a hired killer, right? When it comes with her pussy, she's this whore, and it's one or the other. And so a girl who's good, she wants to be a good person. She's afraid of her sexuality. And so that's why you see like women will fall into this stuff with a fantasy. A guy who with game will be able to disarm her and get her to open up and get her to fall into the fantasy. But she has a very hard time choosing to be sexual over time. It's very much this she almost feels like it's something that she would be forced to do, right? That someone wants to take it from her, and she herself won't let herself enjoy it. You know, my Playboy's Bunny had a great post a while ago, very offhand comment, but she said she doesn't understand why most women don't enjoy sex. It's because most women won't let themselves enjoy sex. Right? My Playboy's Bunny, is very comfortable with her sexuality. She doesn't care. Doesn't give a fuck. It's very healthy. You know, you could say she goes too far or whatever, but she doesn't have a negative relationship with sex or her sexual power. But most women do. So that's some of the information there. But the thing is, when it comes to men, men don't really want, I mean, look, I don't want to take this too far. Obviously, men are attracted to multiple women. But if you talk to guys in relationships, what causes them to stray, it's not that they want to fuck other women. It's not that they need a different looking woman. It's not that they need a different looking woman. Please understand this. What it is that they want a woman who has open sexual energy. And women in relationships will often block that down even when they don't want to, because they have their own shame around sex. And there's a sense of powerlessness they might feel in general, and being able to determine whether or not they can give out sex unconsciously comes into the picture for them. So anyway, all right. So Rob, I'm going to get to yours, but I'm going to answer one of the questions here first. Okay. The hell? Hold on a second. Hold on a second. This isn't All right. All right. All right. I was missing part of the question, but I knew where to find it. All right. So my mother and my sister and her mother and sister are involving themselves a lot in my marriage. He said typical Indian problems, right? Because he's an Indian guy. I need to cut them off for some time because I'm being affected by my mom's opinion about her. This plus a few days back, I got to read a brief chat she had with one of her girlfriends just 10 days before our marriage in August. Her friend, uh, August maybe 2020. Her friend asked whether she likes me or not. My wife replied that I like him and that's the reason I am going ahead with the marriage, but somewhere I lack the connection. There are some opinion differences between us, but I think that they are common with every couple and not a big deal. I read it a few days back. It has been 3 months since our marriage. Okay, so it was this August. It's been 3 months since our marriage, and as of now, everything is good between us. I don't see any dissatisfaction or bad behavior from her side. I don't know what to make of the chat. I talked with her today for this on 2 hours. That she said that she is not getting that feeling that we are one that people usually get in deep love marriages. Mine is an arranged marriage, but we took nearly 7 to 8 months before getting married. And with time, it might change as it is just 1 month since we started living together. Actually, she is not just making a big deal out of this. And even I have the feeling that we are not getting connected on a deeper level. She also said that she finds me dominating and controlling. The control thing I think she feels is because I asked her to cut contact with an ex before marriage, and also after marriage, I asked her not to lock her phone. She deleted her chat with her friend. Thanks in advance. Well, I'm not sure what the actual question is. Um, I think it's more just a, what are your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on the situation? Um, I don't look. You guys just got married. Obviously, would be better if at this early point there was a little bit more of a honeymoon phase. I'm not gonna lie and say that um, that's a little disconcerting, just given how early it is. You know, I expect this stuff more 2 years in, maybe, but it's not one of those things you want to start off with. But look, you guys are married, and um, probably I don't think that there is anything wrong about you obviously having her cut off things with her ex. But what I see here is some classic male female distortions in the relationship where you have on your own end anxiety that you're projecting onto her, and she has intimacy issues. It's intimacy issues on both directions. I think you can talk through it. And look, there are some people who have a really, really deep natural connection, but you can build a deep connection on values, shared values. It doesn't have to be this like crazy, crazy chemistry thing. It doesn't have to be. So I would be very interested in seeing how other things in your relationship are, like how is the sex, and how does she treat you, and what does she want from you, and what do you want from her specifically. Those are all things that you can work on. uh, what's done is done. You guys are married. I think you can totally work with it. I know divorce is pretty taboo, especially there's no reason for you to divorce at this point, right? There's no reason to. But look, the last thing I'll say is a lot of this, we should have had a deeper connection. I don't know. A lot of this stuff is just, jerk yourself off fantasy stuff that a lot of people have. And they imagine a, imaginary girl who will meet all their needs and will connect with them and understand them on all these levels. And the reality is that it's just not usually the case. And most of the time when you do meet a girl like that, it's all bullshit. And then things blow up later. So consider yourself lucky that you guys can have these conversations, these grounded conversations together. Okay. Um, I will answer this question in the chat now. Okay. Hi, Pat. Thanks for the advice. I'm just on a break with my girlfriend of 3 years. Found out she cheated online sexting with a guy in Australia. I took her back after watching too much Esther Perel. I don't. What did Esther Perel do? I remember her name. I don't remember what she did. Anyway, it's it's been since March, and we keep going up and down. I have trust issues now, so sometimes um, I find myself checking her phone and often find small things which get my suspicions up. She has been planning her Australia trip despite saying she wants to be with me. Anyway, I finally decided I'm fed up of feeling suspicious all the time and tried to break up. She keeps getting me to compromise and keep her around. Issue is, I believe she still wants to be with me if she could look me in the eye and when we have sex, initiate or do anything that she did to him. Sex has dried up. She said it's because I put too much pressure on it, so she has no libido. I think she's addicted to online validation, but doesn't enjoy real sex and is bored of monogamy. I've decided to break up on good terms next week, finally. Been reading up a lot about narcissistic behavior. I think she's got traits. Anyway, sorry for rambling, but thanks to you and others for help. Well, look, man, I mean, I guess you didn't really ask a question in the end, but obviously you got to break up with her. You said you're going to do it, but you just got to do it because when she goes to Australia, she's going to cheat on you. So you better do it. You better do it now. Cut the cord. She's messed up, you know? She's messed up. And if you want to help her, you got to lay down the law. Cut her off. Because that'll make it so that when she goes down there, it won't feel the same. Because this is the thing. If you stay with a girl who's kind of having an affair, you end up messing up the whole thing. Um, if you end up staying with a girl who's already having an affair, because what happens is that she will a lot of the reason that she's on the affair to begin with is like there's an aspect that she's trying to get from you and from that. But if you get removed from the picture, what she's getting from that guy falls apart. So it's not the same. So in many ways, the best way to destroy an affair is to just simply pull the rug out from under her for yourself. And also that'll get her to understand that she's very unhappy with the decisions she's making. All right, last question, real quick, and before we go, I think you may have mentioned on Twitter recently that women can also have internalized Madonna whore complex. My wife often suffers from shame after what's usually really great, but outside of the normal boundary sex, which then makes her retreat from intimacy. Any advice for helping partners make peace with their sexual natures? Well, I hope that you've talked to her about it. Have you held space for her and asked her what's going on? I'm not saying necessarily in that moment, but after that, okay, she retreats, call it out and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And really demand it. I mean, it's like, "Hey, what's happening?" And then you can, and if she's not really forthcoming, you can tell her what you presume is happening, um, and ask her, do you feel ashamed? How do you feel about what we did? How do you, you know, a lot of it may just need to come up. And the more that she can let it come out with you, the more that it can be revealed. Um, she can, release it. But if it starts to become like you can also add your own piece into it, depending on how that goes. About, well, look, I love you, and I'm here for you. Just say, and you can say, I don't like I don't understand why you leave when why you disappear after we're close. Like I feel closer to you afterwards. Really be reassuring and stuff. You have a good communication dynamic if you can even have that kind of sex. So look, I think it'll be fine, but just be willing to open that door. All right, guys. See you probably tomorrow, maybe Sunday. We'll talk soon.